I play the biggest pot I've ever played, and it's against another YouTuber. Someone who I consider a good friend. Someone whose YouTube channel has skyrocketed beyond my own channel. None other than Mariano. So let's hop into the video and see who wins this battle of poker YouTubers. Before I hop into the video, I want to let you know that if you want a free roll piece of my action in these Hustler live streams, all you got to do is buy a piece of merch. Currently, I have these hoodies that I designed in the shop. Basically, the morning of my next live stream, I'll randomly draw a name from people that have purchased. I play on these streams about once every 6 weeks, so it's a good chance to win a lot of free money. As you can see, I buy in for quite a lot of money. This time, $40,000, the most I've ever bought in for. I come out raising a lot of hands. In this first orbit here, I opened for $500 under the gun in a straddled pot. $500, just mind-blowing that this is the size of a single raise, and I'm the one making it with Queen 10 offsuit from under the gun. Nick Vertucci, also known as Nitucci for his snug style of play, calls from the button. Heads up to a flop. Flopping top pair, I throw out a small bet here.
500. Johnnie gonna continue with top pair, and Nick's just done with it.
A couple hands later, I'm in the hijack with the suited ace. This time, no straddle is on, so I make it $200, isolating the limp from Mike X. Francisco calls from the button, Nitucci calls from the big blind, and Mike X closes the action. 4 ways to a flop. Flopping the nut flush draw multi-way, I decide to bet around a third pot here. This is a hand I'm willing to put some money in with, so I'm fine with building a pot here. Everyone quickly tosses their cards into the muck, and we're off to a nice little start here. After passing through the blinds, I'm now in early position with a pretty looking gapper in spades. Raise this one up to $200. Tall calls in the cutoff with Jack 4 suited. As you can see, people are loosening up already. Nick decides to 3-bet this one from the button, and when it folds back to me, I think all options are definitely on the table here. Nick's nitty reputation is ultimately why I decided to make the call here. I have a hand that can really punish over pairs when the right boards come down. And since we are, let's call it 350 big blinds deep here, I think it's okay to speculate. Seeing that he actually has the ace-8 of diamonds here, I like my call a lot less now. Anyway, here we are, heads up and off to a flop that gives us definitely some possibilities. After I check it over to him, he decides to put out $1,000. This deep folding is not an option, so it's between call or raise. Like I said, in game, I thought he was much stronger than he actually is, so I decided on a call, hoping to bank a lucky turn card.
Well, there it is. Gonna keep barreling.
When he bets full pot here on this dynamic board texture, I think my best option is to raise.
Imagine Johnnie puts in a raise here after Nick pots the turn.
And to try to get some money in by the river.
There it is, and he raises to essentially half of Nick's remaining stack size. And Nick lets it go.
I'm officially building some momentum in a huge game. Let's keep it going by dropping a like on this video. More likes on a YouTube video equals more run good provided to the YouTuber. I'm telling you, that's how it works. It seems that that's a rule. And I'm definitely going to need this run good when playing on Hustler live streams. This one is kind of a fun one as the card reader doesn't pick up my holdings until the end of the hand. So let's try to figure out what I have here before the reveal at the end of the hand. It's a straddle pot for $200 and Nick opens to 600 with pocket threes. I call on the button here. While we're at it, let's make this the range converter hand of the vlog. Since range converter has added solutions for straddled pots, now these spots are solved more accurately. So here's what it says that my calling range should be on the button. All of the green areas, and I'm happy to report that my hand did in fact fall into one of these green shaded boxes. So there's your first clue. On to the flop, which ends up being heads up between myself and Nitucci.
Okay.
Single raise pot here. Straddle pot.
400.
I'm gonna check call with threes. Make Johnnie double barrel.
Here on the turn, I think Nick's hand is fairly weak. It can definitely contain some traps, but I think he's gonna show up with a hand like ace-king, ace-10, or pocket pairs. I decide to size up and put pressure on those marginal hands. I would do this in this spot with all of my queens and my strongest jacks. I'd also do it with my bluffs. We can rule out medium strength hands when I use this sizing. So which is it? Do I have value? Do I have a bluff? Let me know what you think I have if I'm value betting or if I'm bluffing. For those of you that guessed bluff, you were right. Nice work. Turned a flush draw and decided to double barrel and got it through. Okay, the momentum is continuing and my raises are getting a bit loose as I open it up from early with 10-9 offsuit. The graphics are a bit late picking up my hand, but Nick calls from the small blind with the same hand, also 10-9. Of course, I don't know this, so I'm very happy when I see that I flop trips. Great board to get some value, so I bet a third pot here. I could perhaps go a little bit larger here. He's never folding an ace or a flush draw for a large sizing, which makes a large bet more appealing. The reason why I went for a small sizing is I wanted to keep in hands like king, queen, king, jack, queen, jack, backdoor diamonds that contain a Broadway card. Anyway, he makes the call and we both see the exact card we didn't want to see on the turn. Hard to get value from draws and worse hands, so I decided to check this one back. River changes nothing and Nick decides to bet a large sizing here. It really just feels like he's value betting and his hand just really looks like an ace. I really tried to find a hand that he would bluff with here, a hand with no showdown value, and I could only come up with small pairs. So I decided to make the discipline fold thinking I'd see an ace the majority of the time here. Obviously, I failed to even account for him having the last 10 in the deck. At this point of the night, Mariano has been having a rough go of it. He's down a bunch of money and has started playing a lot of hands. So when I look down at ace jack, I think this is going to be way ahead of Mariano's button ISO range. So I make it a large sizing here, 5x from the small blind.
Mariano in max punish mode. We see him just snap call there with queen 3.
Unfortunately, the board comes down in a way where he's going to have more of an advantage post-flop. Mark Goon, the announcer, recognizes this fact straight away.
Mariano's going to win this hand.
I quickly do get away from this one after he fires on the flop. Going to be nearly impossible for me to call down on this board texture. This next one is a fun one versus Wesley. I open it up in early position and Wesley 3-bets me next to act. I decide to just call, although in retrospect, I should really be 4-betting my hand when his range includes 3-4 suited. The disrespect. Or perhaps he's just noticed that I've been the loosest player at the table through the first half of the show. Regardless, we end up seeing an 8-high flop. Could be fireworks on this board pending the run out. I have an easy check call here versus this large flop sizing. And when we see another 8 on the turn, Wesley wisely slows down here. The river bricks off with a 5, and I decide it's time to go get some value here. I think he could potentially have over pairs in this spot, so I go full pot.
Johnnie goes pot, which I like. He could probably get away with an overbet. Wesley makes a good fold.
As you can see, things are going well as I'm up around $5,000 now. Open it up from early in a straddled pot with pocket sixes. End up going 4 ways to a flop with a healthy $2,100 in the middle already. On this flop, my hand is likely ahead, but never going to be a huge equity favorite. Basically, my hand benefits from denying equity and also getting value from a hand containing a 3 or a 5. No need to bet big though, and I settle on 1K. Mariano is the only caller. The king on the turn is better for me, but I think my hand is just too good to bluff. We end up checking this one all the way down to the river, and I take down another small one. A small one. I mean, that's crazy to say since there's $4,100 in the pot. These games are just, they're definitely a rush. Next, we are in the small blind with pocket 10s, and Natucci raises it up from early position on a relatively short stack. Effectively, Nick has 100 big blinds in this hand, so I guess I could probably raise with the intention of getting it in pre-flop. It is still $20,000, and Nick isn't known to go crazy for all-in sizings from early position with pairs that are worse than 10s. So I decide to take the low variance route here and just make the call. Decent flop for my hand, but playing in flow, I check it over to Nick, who checks it back. The turn is not a great card, although we do have the 10 of hearts in our hand, so I continue to check this one over. After Nick decides to bet this turn, I think our hand is just too good to fold at this point, especially for the $800 sizing, so I go ahead and toss it into the middle, and we are off to the river. Nick decides to bet yet again on the river. I really like this bet by Nick. A lot of the times people will just check back one pair on scary boards, but he blocks the straight and also blocks the nut flush. The possibility of me check raising as a bluff now or check raising for value is much lower due to the specific hand he actually holds. I end up making the fold, so pretty happy to only put chips in while ahead and fold while behind. This next hand is blind versus blind and ends up being one of the biggest pots I've ever played. It starts with me bumping it up from the small blind 4x to 800. Wesley on a huge stack calls. Francisco closes the action in the straddle, and we are 3 ways to a flop. These blind versus blind spots are very interesting as they're spots that contain wide ranges. So when the flop comes down low and dry, I'm going to continue and expect a decent amount of folds on this board. I continue for 900 into 2500. Wesley is the only caller, and we are heads up to the turn. Beautiful card. I'm not going to have a 9 very often here, and because my flop sizing, I think that Wesley's going to have a lot of floats here. So I decide to set the trap and check. Wesley does in fact bet, and he uses a fairly large sizing. So far the plan is working. Make the call and hold on for dear life on the river. Luckily the river is a 9, so my plan of check calling the river now changes to check raise. Luckily Wesley decides not to take his showdown value, and he overbets the river, 15,000 into 11,000. Music to my ears. All I'm thinking about right now is Vegas and the Mirage as I patiently wait to shove my stack into the middle. If he somehow can make the call here with a worse hand, it'll be the biggest pot that I've ever won. In the end, he folds, and still a great result as I'm now up over $25,000, over halfway through the show. Finally on my way to a huge session on Hustler's live stream. As you can see, I'm raising with all kinds of hands and getting great boards to c-bet, winning this one here with a 10 high flush draw. All is going well when it is time to face off against Mariano, the biggest pot that I've ever played. Let's see if we can take down the beast that is Mariano. It starts with Mariano raising it up to 500 in a straddle pot from early position. I look down at a pretty ace queen in spades and 3-bet this one to 1700. Mariano decides to call heads up, and we are off to a great flop for our hand with 3,700 already in the middle. I continue for 2,000, and Mariano snap check raises me to 10,000. Absolutely no hesitation. Of course, I'm never allowed to fold my hand, so the question is, do I raise or just call? I think it's best to just call here and play a turn in position. So I do just that, and when the turn is a brick and after a long deliberation from Mariano and an eventual check, action is now on me. I really think that if Mariano had a set that he would continue barreling on this turn card, which makes me think that he has either a worse queen or a flush draw. Perhaps maybe a combo draw, something like Jack 10 of diamonds. And against that range of hands, we really have to bet here. All in would definitely be overkill against that range. Basically, I want to give him an improper price. And after some deliberation, I decide on a large bet of $20,000. It's so crazy to think that I'm betting $20,000 on the turn here with just a single pair. Absolutely monstrous game. When he decides to make the call, I'm just praying for no diamond on the river. There's $63,710 in the middle. The largest pot that I've ever played, even without any river action. No diamond would put me at a profit of over $60,000 in this game. Let's see if we can hold. Ugh, not the river card that I wanted. And making the fold here is difficult in game. Basically, I need to put $23,000 in to win a $110,000 pot. But the question is he bluffing 20% of the time here? If he is, then I guess it would be a break-even call. I decide that he almost always has a flush in the spot and make the fold. Crazy how this one hand can define the whole session. If I realize 75% equity in this one spot, I'm up nearly $60,000. Instead, I'm down nearly $10,000. I felt like I played that hand really well.
Me or
He did.
I felt like I played it really well.
I'm sure you did.
In the end, I ended up losing 9,500. Overall, I played okay. For sure, I could have played better. It's difficult to be the loosest player in the game and show a profit, but I nearly made that happen. And don't forget that if you bought merch and won the random draw, and I hold for that $60,000 profit, that would have paid out a free $600. But if you don't win the drawing, you'll still have a sick hoodie, and I'll forever be grateful for your support of my channel. All right, guys, long day. I made the final table. And
So did I.
and he made the final table too.
We were just talking about this last week. We're like, we're going to make a final table soon. Me, you, and Christy. And it just happened in a week. Crazy.
Yeah, it feels like a dream. I love it. It's something that we talked about and dreamed about. And there were so many Good players too, so I feel so accomplished that I was able to make the final table with this beast right here.